Hi everyone, welcome back to another Math 9 video. Today we are doing 1.5, which is order of operations, or you might have heard of something called BEDMAS. So this is a review from last year. BEDMAS is brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. That's what it stands for. And that is basically just referring to the order of operations or the order that you should solve your questions in. So it's meant to be helpful for you when solving questions that have multiple operations going on. So let's dive into some examples to help clarify and show you how you should go about this. If we have something like 16 plus 2 divided by 2 times 3, and we're trying to simplify and solve this, well, according to BEDMAS, there are no brackets, so I don't need to worry about it. There are no exponents. Division and multiplication are the things that we have to deal with or worry about first. So as I go through this from left to right, that's always how we read an equation, just like a book, I notice that here's my first part where there's any division or multiplication. So when I go through this, 2 divided by 2 would just give me 1. And then I'm going to take that and multiply it by 3 because I just bring down the 3 that was there. So I'm going to bring this down as well, 16 plus, and then we have all of this stuff going on. And then we're still not dealing with the 16 quite yet. 1 times 3 is just 3. So when I go through all of this, I get that 16 plus 3 is equal to 19. So after all that, my answer is 19. So the key with this is that we started with the division, then the multiplication. Actually, technically, the order of these two could be reversed. It doesn't matter. Same with addition and subtraction. We could, it doesn't have to be that addition is before subtraction. That stuff doesn't matter, but it does matter that the division and multiplication happens before addition and subtraction do. So I'll show you with yet another example. Let's say we have 3 squared plus 4 times 2, and we're trying to figure out what this is equal to. So again, a reminder that this little dot indicates multiplication. We don't use x's because now we're starting to use variables, and they can sometimes be mistaken for a variable. So again, going through BEDMAS, although there's no brackets, there is an exponent. So I'm going to deal with that part first. So this 3 squared becomes 9. And this 4 times 2 becomes 8. And I have a plus sign in between them. So notice what happened. I deal with the other stuff first, and I leave the plus or the addition till the end. So after doing this, I get 17 as my answer that I'm going to write in up here. Okay, so far we have not dealt with any brackets, so let's do that in this example. Let's say I give you a big set of square brackets. We have 9 minus negative 2, and the whole thing is squared plus negative 3 cubed. Okay, now this is getting good. And we want to know what this whole thing is equal to. So again, it's BEDMAS. Brackets always have to start first. So I am going to take this and deal with this inside part first. That has to be the first thing that happens. I'm going to rewrite it like this because whatever I end up getting as my answer is going to be squared. So let's work our way through this. If I have 9 minus negative 2, that's like saying plus 2. So 9 plus 2 is equal to 11. So this is saying 11 squared plus negative 3 cubed equals. So brackets are done. These brackets don't really need to be there. It could just say 11 squared. And then exponents need to happen next. So 11 squared we know is 121. Found you guys were quite good at knowing your perfect squares. And then plus, what's negative 3 cubed? Okay, so this ties in with what we did in the last lesson. The negative sign is a part of the base because it's in the brackets. So we're doing negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9 times negative 3 again. That would give us negative 27. So we are doing 121 plus negative 27 is the same thing as just saying 121 minus 27, right? So they mean exactly the same thing. So after doing that, we just get 94 as our answer. Okay, so I hope that you're starting to get the hang of this. We'll do one more example where I'll throw in something a little bit different to make this a little more exciting. So we have 5 minus 3 times 2, all in brackets and all squared, minus 5 plus 3 over 2 squared equals. Okay, that's a lot of stuff happening. I'm going to teach you this and go through this multiple times throughout the year. You're going to hear me throughout the course, you're going to hear me repeating this. But when something looks really long and complicated and scary, just pretend half of it isn't even happening. So if I just gave you this part, doesn't that look so much better? Okay, it's huge, but you get the idea that at least that allows us to just zoom in or focus in on one little part so it doesn't look so overwhelming. Sometimes when you look at the big, huge equation with tons of things happening, it's overwhelming and it can induce anxiety. So just zoom in on one little part and take it step by step, and that'll make it easier for you to approach. So even within the brackets, I have some stuff going on. There's some subtraction and multiplication. So we know the multiplication part has to happen first. So let's start by doing that. This is the same thing as 5 minus, and I've got to do 3 times 2 is 6. And then the whole thing would be squared. So there's the first part. We're not worrying about the rest of it yet. 5 minus 6, we know that that's just equal to negative 1. So what I actually have is negative 1 squared. And then I do still have the other stuff over there that we're going to deal with in just a minute. But I want to show you that all the way from like that big, long, confusing thing, we can simplify it and break it down to just get negative 1 squared, which we know is just the same thing as the number 1. So look what we did there. We took that big, long, complicated thing and shrunk it down and simplified and shrunk it down. And now we're just left with the number 1, which isn't too bad at all. We know there's a minus sign there, so I'm going to carry down that minus sign to make sure we're not forgetting anything. And now we're going to bring in the part that we were ignoring. And we're just going to deal with that part separately. And we're going to take the same approach. So we're sort of treating this like they're separate questions. We'll deal with them separately. And when we're ready for it, we'll bring it all together again. And this is a really good approach to use. So I am going to set things up by leaving that stuff there so we can not forget about it. And then again, even within the brackets, there's a bunch of stuff going on. So within the brackets, notice that there's addition here. I leave that till the end. And then I have a fraction and there's an exponent on that fraction. So I'm going to do 5 plus, let's simplify this. Remember bed mass, so the exponent part has to come first. So 3 squared is 9 over 2. 5 plus 9 over 2 is what we're dealing with. Okay, but the thing is, I drew this way too big, and now I'm going to move it up. That's why I love this thing, because it gives me the power to do that. So then in this next one, well, I can't add 5 plus 9 over 2. This is like saying 5 over 1 if there's nothing written there. So in order to make it comparable, in order to deal with the fractions, I'm going to multiply this by 2 over 2 to get a common denominator. So 5 times 2 is 10 over 2 plus 9 over 2. So I hope that you're able to make sense of that and it's clear how we dealt with that, because this is a little bit complicated. There's a whole bunch of different operations going on in just one question. So we can simplify that even more. 10 plus 9 would be 19 over 2. And so now we're going to bring back the part that we had ignored. We had 1 minus, oh, I wrote the minus sign here and there. I shouldn't have done that, but let's bring this all together. So after all of that, after all that work, we're working with or dealing with this part here. So I'm going to rewrite that all in one color so we can put things into perspective and see it clearly. We have 1 minus 19 over 2 equals. So just like in the pink part here, we need to get a common denominator. So another way I could write the number 1 is to just call it 2 over 2. And so after doing this, well, I'm still going to have a denominator of 2. 2 minus 19 gives us negative 17. That's our answer. We could leave it like that, or we can leave the negative there and say how many times does 2 go into 17? It would be 8 times, and I'd be left with 1. 8 times 2 is 16, so I'd be left with 1 to get to 17. I can change it to a mixed number and write it like this. So let me say this. If you are finding this overwhelming, don't worry. This is really complicated and there's a lot of stuff going on there. I purposely chose one of the hardest ones for us to go through together so that when you're working on your own, online, at home, this helps you to be able to tackle some of the harder ones. And if you are struggling to even understand this stuff, then skip the ones that are like this. I want you to get a handle on the basics, which is the other stuff that we did, but only do this as bonus or extra if you are ready for it. So what I would like you to do for your work for today is numbers 1 to 5. You can do the odd letters. So again, that would be A, C, E, G, etc., etc. And I hope you found this useful.